Next up, we got climate change. Let's get it, chink.
From the top to the bottom, the top I stop. At the core I forgot, in the middle of my thoughts. Taking part for my safety, the picture's there. The memory won't escape me, but why should I care? From the top to the bottom, the top I stop. At the core I forgot, in the middle of my thoughts. Taking part for my safety, the picture's there. The memory won't escape me, but why should I care? There's a place so dark you can't see the end. Skies cocked back, shotgun which can't defend the rain.
So look, bro, climate change. Okay, so I was talking to my father about this. So I was wondering, I've always been interested in, I guess the popular term is science denial, but I think maybe a better term would be anti-science. Because when you say science denial, it kind of sounds like it's kind of like a pretty aggressive statement. Maybe it should be aggressive, I don't know, because like if we don't solve climate change, we're all going to die horribly. So maybe it's a good thing, but I prefer a term like anti-science rather than science denial, because I just think saying denial, it just sounds like too kind of emotional or tilted or something like that. So I would say being anti-science or pseudo-scientific, or like I don't believe in science or something might be a better way of putting it. But I was trying to think like, so I like to compare, like, why do people, I guess half of people in the United States don't believe in evolution, okay? And a huge number of them are on the political right, the religious right, or just religious people in general. And likewise, some of the same people, but also other people, deny or reject, and in some cases are just uncertain about climate change in the Western world, especially the United States, especially on the political right with the Republican Party. And so I'm wondering, like, why? Like, what's the motivation for the cognitive dissonance? What creates the cognitive dissonance? What's the motivation for not wanting to believe this? And when it comes to evolution, or like young Earth creationism, like the belief that the Earth was created in the form that it is now, geologically, like 6,000 years ago. Why do people believe that? Like, what's the reason? I would basically say my hypothesis is that, they don't want to believe that evolution is the cause for the diversity of life, and they don't want to believe like that it wasn't created, because it would create, cognitive dissonance, a crisis of faith. It just rejects, it conflicts with their worldview, their Weltanschauung, their religious metaphysic, in a way that's like irreconcilable. So that's the reason they don't believe in evolution, and they think the Earth is 6,000 years old and all that. So that's like, I would say that's there's like a logic to the motivation, However, in the case of climate change, I don't know why people don't believe it. Like, I don't know why they do that, why they make up these excuses, why there's entire pundits and like influencers on the internet who like make a living saying it's bullshit and all that. Like, what's the reason? One theory, so I was talking to my father, and he said, because my dad was saying, oh, I think it's because people just don't want to stop driving. They don't want to like give up their lifestyle. I think that might be a factor, but people being like afraid to like give up their lifestyle, if that's the case, then why is the people on the political left, how come they believe in climate change? Because they also drive and stuff. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people on the political left use like public transit more than on the right, but most people still drive, most people still fly around, most people have hot baths. All these things, are bad for climate change. So I don't know if that's true. Because if that was true, then people on the right should have significantly more transport and energy usage. But I don't think that's true. I think people still use air conditioning and they drive, and because we have to. So I don't think that's the reason. That's what my dad thinks. I was kind of thinking there's some kind of, obviously it's industrial propaganda. So like Fox News and whatever, like these kind of, or now it's probably more like the internet, like the meme philosophers and the bullshit artists and stuff. But I would say like it might be some kind of like right-wing kind of ideological problem or something. Like this idea of just, let's just drill for more oil, and then that'll solve all our economic problems. And then if you tell them, that drilling more oil, like getting more oil from the ground and putting it into the environment, is like really bad for the environment. So what I'd say is like, there's like a Thomas Sowell, who's like kind of a smart guy. He's smart as an economist, but he's like one of these like, baby drill or whatever people. So is that the reason? Is this just like some economic thing where they just don't want to believe there is such a thing as like greenhouse gases and that they have this effect, because it just fucks up their like economic like worldview? Because if that's the case, I don't know, I guess that's different. And I think another thing is like the people who are already anti-science, the people who already like don't believe in evolution, like a lot of these creationists, like the religious right or whatever, it's not just they don't believe in evolution, they don't believe in like the Big Bang Theory, they don't believe that some of them don't believe that light can travel, is like the speed limit of the universe. Like they think like it can go faster than that, because they also some like Kent Hovind once said, this may be a sort of a weird like outlier thing, but Kent Hovind said like, if you take a drop of water, you can stretch it across the world, which according to our dear Thunderfoot is wrong by a factor of 1 trillion. So it's like, once you're like that, once you think like that you think that like they brought eggs on the ark and there was a giant ice shield that surrounded the earth and all that kind of shit, then it's very easy to just be like, oh fuck climate change, it's not real or whatever. Like it's very, like the floodgates are open. That still doesn't explain like why. I don't think that totally explains why they don't want to believe in it in the first place. Because it's like, it's kind of a big deal. Like, what's the logic? Maybe it's not that complicated. Maybe I said it right there. Like, it's just some politico-economic kind of problem, cognitive dissonance or something. But I would just say, like, I guess it's fair to say that there might be a logic to human beings' intentions and the way they think about information and their cognitive dissonance. Like, I've noticed this in myself. The way I usually solve the problem is just through like just going all out and being really aggressive and just like saying fuck it, let's just do the thing, and not like trying to, I don't know, like lie to myself, like just face things. But then even then you sort of have to stop and think about the logic of like, wait, why am I feeling this way? What am I doing? What's my motivation? What's the logic of why I don't want to think about this? Or what's my problem with these facts? Like, why can't I just accept it? So I think it's fair, although it may be reductive, it's fair to say that people have motivations, a logic to why they believe things or don't believe things. However, in the case of climate change, I don't really know what the motivation is. What is the logic? Because this is like high school science. This is not really complicated. Like, the details are complicated, but the actual orientation of what's happening to the environment is high school science. If you did grade 9 science in high school, you would understand climate change, the basic orientation of it, and yet they don't seem to. They're like, no, it's bullshit or whatever. Back when I was on Twitter, which I quit all social media because it's a waste of time. But back when I was on Twitter, I followed a Twitter account called I Love CO2, and it was basically like this account that was saying like, CO2 is like really good and it's really healthy and it really makes the plants grow, which is true. It is true that CO2 makes plants grow, but it's not like you just put more CO2 and there's just going to be so many plants and everything's going to be awesome. Sometimes more vegetation is actually bad for an ecosystem because it increases like the level of herbivores and stuff, which can create overpopulation or whatever. I don't know. And there's other reasons too, but even if that's true, which it isn't, it doesn't take away from the fact that when we have a greenhouse effect, it's going to just keep heating shit up. So all I gotta say is it's grade 9 science, and I don't know. Like, I don't know what to say to these people. Like, what is the logic why do they do this? Like when people make these kind of excuses, I don't know why they do that. You know, when they say like, oh, the climate's always changing or whatever, like it's just, there's a logic. Like they don't want to, they'll say the climate's is always changing, and then they'll say, oh, well, humans aren't causing it, and they'll say, okay, well, they are causing it, but we can't do anything about it. Like there's sort of a logic, and if you just sort of peel the layers of the bullshit and the kind of rationalizations, you might come to some kind of locus, some kind of focal point where it's like, okay, this is the reason you don't want to believe this, is because you don't want like the government to do anything about it. Like basically like it's political, basically. So you, like, even though like people on the political right say, oh, the state is bad, it shouldn't be but it's like, I think the state has a function to protect the society from complete destruction, and so does like the fucking Pentagon, despite people think they're like warmongers, and they probably are, but even the Pentagon says that the United States is at existential risk from climate change. So I don't know, like I don't really know what to do about like people not believing in climate change. I've tried to like talk to people on the internet, and it doesn't work. I've even had people who are like really nice and reasonable, and it's just this thing where like they don't know where to get their information from. So they'll be like, oh, Time magazine had an article that said the Earth is actually getting colder. It's like, Time magazine is fucking irrelevant. It's not a scientific journal. It's bullshit. It's just like sensational, ideological media garbage. That's not a scientific journal. You know, go to Nature or something, and then you'll get like some information on climate change. But yeah, you'll get like these people like Dinesh D'Souza, like, oh, you see, and it's like you're using like Time magazine. It's fucking stupid. It's fucking gay.
Yeah, let's take a trip. Just sit back and light a spliff with this, and don't slip on a funky dope track. Jump back, strapped with a fat Buddha sack and a 7/8 black on clean. Gangsta lean, I got green, but I serve